Yes, sir.
All right, welcome to the Moines City Council meeting October 4th. This is a special meeting, and I'll ask clerk to please take roll.
County,
Here.
Boson,
Here.
Voss,
Here.
Westergaard, here. Mandelbaum,
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and or as amended.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and multiply second. Let's all, should we all vote on this?
Voice vote.
You want a voice vote on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, we'll move on. The next item is directing the sale of the general obligation bonds, Series 2023A. Mr. Manager, any comment on this?
Yeah, actually, I'll just have some introductory comments for the whole issuances that we've got in front of you today and the policy change. I want to recognize finance staff, legal, and then our consultants, PFM with John Burmeister, and in our outside bond counsel as well, in assisting us in planning this out. We're seeing today the final bids and near conclusion as we move towards closing, but there is an awful lot of work that obviously goes into each cycle of debt issuance that we need to take care of, including the credit ratings, which were confirmed yet again. Working even before that on our CIP to make sure we understood the capacities that we have within our CIP to issue more debt. In today's issuances, we have both our general obligation bonds. Those are the more typical CIP bonds. Think about streets and facilities. Whereas we also have the stormwater management utility revenue bonds, which we don't always have. These are more unique for us. And there was a lot of analysis over a couple years worth to determine that this would be the best way to handle our stormwater CIP needs through the revenue bonds that we now today find ourselves in a position to accept the terms. So again, I appreciate everybody's time on this, including the council through CIP discussions and the bond hearings that we needed to have previously. And I think with that, I will turn it over to Nick and John for the details.
Thank you, Scott. Honorable Mayor and council members, I'm going to talk about items 3 and 4 quickly. Just wanted to reiterate, thanking you guys coming in for Wednesday. We had a really good response like we normally do on our Wednesday sales. John Burmeister will come up here and kind of talk about how much interest we had through the electronic bidding process. And it is a little bit higher interest rate because the market is moving up, but we did get some pretty good interest rates for a true interest rate cost between the two. From a GO standpoint, the total interest, the true interest cost that we have on that was 4.26% over the course of that, and then our stormwater debt was 4.4. Again, that's much higher than what we've had in the past, just because interest rates have been rising over the last couple of years. But it is one where we will still have the opportunity to there is a callable feature at the end, depending on what's going on with the interest rates. But based off of this is our first year of a downtick of our peak of debt issuance. I think was last year where we had like 80 some million, and this year the par amount actually did go under 70 million this particular year, and our CIP has plans for it to go ratcheting down over the next couple of years as well. So I'll actually let John speak more on the actual bid that we saw and how many people responded and how much interest we had. So thank you guys for very, very much coming in on a Wednesday for this sale.
Thank you, Nick. John Burmeister of PFM. Pleasure to be here. As Nick indicated, we did solicit proposals from underwriters at 10 a.m. this morning. As Scott indicated, there are 2 series. The first one is the Series A. It's a general obligation bonds. We went out for $72.63 million. I'm pleased to tell you that your Wednesday sale, there was a very small calendar in the United States today. We had 16 different underwriters signed up on your bonds. And we ended up getting 15 bids from those folks. You should have a results of sale, and I wanted you to kind of look through the details there. It's 8 pages deep on the number of bids that you received with the 15 bids. Jeffries LLC out of New York, they bid a 4.27, and if you kind of flip through the very pages, if you go back to page 7, you can see Robert W. Baird bid with their syndicate. There's actually 28 different underwriters in that group. So you can see these underwriters are coming all over the United States. This deal attracted not only the Wall Street firms, but also the large regional firms here as well. You're seeing bidders from as far away as Kansas, Tennessee, New York, Missouri, and then you're seeing some Florida, Georgia, New Jersey, Alabama, North Carolina, a couple bidders from there, Pennsylvania. So you are attracting the market today, and it was essentially your size. These folks that are in Wall Street don't like wasting their time, and so the size, the 72 million, attracted their attention as well as the smaller bid, smaller sale today. You can see that we did downsize the bond issue from 72.63 million to 69.665. And then we did a little restructuring with the premium, and we lowered the size of that, and so the true interest cost is 4.27%. And then also remember on this structure, we've got one big deal, but we've taken all of your CIP projects and we've categorized them between 5-year, 10-year, 15 years, and 20. So we are amortizing your bonds relative to the life of the project. So if the equipment's for 5 years, that's getting paid off in 5 years. If a project is 10 years, it's getting paid off in 10 years. And so this deal is kind of more front-loaded because as you have more 5 and 10-year terms, you pay off the bonds faster. And that was always a goal of the city that we've been trying for 10 years or so, and we're actually doing that. This is like the 3rd or 4th issue that we're amortizing based on the useful life of those projects. So you should be really proud of that because your debt's going to come offline a lot faster over time. And then last but not least, as Scott indicated, the storm water management utility bonds. This is payable from your stormwater utility. We had 14 bidders signed up for this one, ended up getting 10 bids, and this was 6 pages deep, and you can see the same bidders. J.P. Morgan, they're a local presence here in the community. They bid out of New York here at a 4.4%, and you can see what the other bidders did here at a 4.47% on the high end. So a lot of bidders, a lot of interest. And the interest rates have been going up dramatically in the last year and a half, and it's the competitive results of this is forcing the underwriters to work very cheaply on their underwriters discount, and so that's driving the cost down to the city based on the competitive. The only way they can win is to basically cut their fee down, and so that's been very attractive to the city as well. So with that, I'll just open it up to any questions that you may have. And then as Scott indicated, S&P did confirm your AA+, AA+ rating, so that's something to be proud of as well. Yeah.
Incredibly small amount
Yeah.
in terms of the scope of how big that bond is.
And that means it's a good bid because if they have 2 bidders that are really tight, that means it's a
Right.
real good, efficient bid process.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's
Yeah.
20,000 on this. and
Yep, exactly.
Crazy. Close.
If there's no other comments, I'll move item 3, Your Honor.
I'll second. Yeah.
I know, but do we have to do them
We have to
separately?
do Separate on bonds usually.
You want me to vote, you want to vote on them separate? Yeah, so I'll move item 3.
And I'll second.
Three's been moved and seconded. Everybody vote?
6 yes.
I'll move item 4, Your Honor.
Also moved and seconded, ask you to vote again.
6 yes.
All right, let's move on to item 5, which is accepting fiscal year 2024 from the city's debt limit policy, classification 3-450. Mr.
Mayor and council members, you'll see there is a blue letter on this, and I'm going to let Nick dive into this one more depth, but essentially we find ourselves with the opportunity to purchase the nationwide building here before the end of the year, and with this issuance, the numbers in the total amount of debt that would be issued would slightly exceed the 80% amount that we try and target and stay under. And so we wanted to make that crystal clear and be transparent about that with this action tonight. But that isn't looking at three variables that will change in the very near future. Is that first and foremost, you'll recognize that we've had discussions about issuing less debt over time. And so that plan absolutely will continue forward because it also impacts the debt service levy that we're trying to manage. So the debt limit in the policy is about the par amount, the amount of debt, not the tax rate itself, which is something that we have to manage separately. The additional debt is impacted by new valuation. It's based on 5% of the market value. And we all know that those market values are going up significantly for January 1 of 2023. So our numbers do not reflect that yet, but they will here in a few months. And so we know that that gives us more capacity from a policy standpoint. And then lastly, we're also paying significant debt each year, which pays that down. So issuing less debt, making debt payments, and then the market value increasing significantly give us every bit of confidence that this will be a one-year situation where we need to exceed the 80%. Nick, fill in the gaps for me.
So, yeah, so Scott, you're saying the next budget that we pass in March, that goes into effect July 1, that we will be over our debt limit when we do this for 1 year. Is that what you're saying?
You want to do the timing because it actually happens with the purchase, right?
Yeah, so when, right now, with the debt that we just issued, the GO debt that we just issued, we still have capacity within the 80%. With the timing of the debt with the 1200 Locust, we would actually be over the 80% percentage in that window of time of issuing that. But then we have about 49 million of GO debt that's going to be paid off on June 1st. So this might even correct itself within this fiscal year.
Okay.
It's just one of those things where normally when we go to council, we usually report that debt limit at the end of the fiscal year. But during this time frame, in just the timing of it, we wanted to make sure that we were very transparent that throughout this year, we will be over that 80%. That's why we wanted to be approval for the exception to the policy.
But then by the end of the fiscal year, I'm sorry.
Linda, and then Josh, and you.
So, yeah,
So
my apologies.
my concern is, I'm very concerned about us going over the 80% debt limit. And when I hear you say we should be okay, that's not really a guarantee. And then when I hear Scott say, well, the valuations, because the property valuations are going up, then we'll be within line of the 80%. But what happens? I think back to 2007 and 2008 when the real estate market absolutely crashed. And if you all remember, then our valuations went down quite a bit. And we can't foresee what will happen. So what happens if the valuations go down and now we're a lot over 80%? Won't that affect our borrowing capacity? Won't that affect our ratings?
So it will if we were to continually be over that 80%. One thing that the debt limit is based off of is the 100% valuation. And so the 100% valuation is not what we tax on. It is truly what that. Okay. So what we are currently looking at for estimates, and we work with PFM on those, based off of that, we anticipate as soon as we get into fiscal year 2025, we are going to have a debt capacity of an additional almost 100 million of being under 80% as soon as we get to fiscal year 25. So from that standpoint, the 80% is not actually going to be a concern. It's going to be how much we're actually issuing and what that does affect the debt levy. So if the 80% is one where even if we were to have some decreases like we had in the past, where we did have 2 or 3% decreases in some of those years, we would be able to sustain that to stay under that 80%. It's just the fiscal year '24 because of the uniqueness of purchasing a building and the improvements that we have to do to a building, which is what got us into that slightly over, or the timing of which, where we will have basically issuing the $50 million for the acquisition and improvements to 1,200 Locust, and we're also paying off $49 million. So in that scenario, we are almost taking on debt the same amount that we are paying in that same year. So.
Scott, anything you want to say?
Just a reminder that the council has made tough decisions moving us forward on the 1,200 Locust, in recognition that the alternative to that was building new and a much smaller square footage at that. And so, throughout the process for the last 18 months, we've been talking about how prudent it would be to find an existing building
And we
to
need that
renovate.
building. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, because
My problem is over the 80%.
sure, right.
Okay. Josh?
I was just going to clarify, the 80% is a city policy, that's not any state policy. And what is happening, I mean, this is by nature, it's a temporary piece because of the larger than normal capital cost of acquiring the building.
It would be almost basically taking what we just issued for the regular annual issuance of 70 million and then adding 50 to it. So you're talking, 120 million in 1 year. So it's kind of a very unique situation in that regard.
And we will, as you explained, we'll be back down as we pay off our debt. I mean, so
And like,
over the course of the year, this is not a permanent exception. The policy still exists. And again, it's a city policy, we're not violating any laws. It's our policy guidelines, and this is a unique.
and there's a few things that apply to the legal debt limit, not just the debt that we issue, but there's also TIF agreements, the annually appropriated TIF agreements that goes against that debt limit as well. So our policy, since we are saying that we're using 80% of that, it's all the TIF agreements that go against it as well, not just the GO debt that we have. So just because we have general obligation debt, there's a lot of debt out there that we have that is being paid by TIF increment as well as enterprise. So we have part of MSC2 is being paid by refuse, because the MSC2 building was built for a lot of refuse trucks and their operations as well. So that comes into play where it's going against the debt limit, but not going against what our debt service levy is actually paying for. So this policy is separate. It's kind of its own separate portion to the debt management policy in general. So.
Thanks. Could someone provide just a little historical background, like before the council imposed the 80%? Was there a higher level, or was there no?
Wow. I know you'd have to go back more than 20 years. Do you remember in the late 90s?
So that'd be
I think
like-
it already was established back then even.
Before Merrill County even?
Yeah, yes. BC, before county. That's even rough there.
That's a question.
But yeah.
So was there?
Yes.
Yes.
It was lower. It was 70%. I think there was a moment even before that it was 60.
Yeah, I believe so as well.
And boosted it to 70.
In 2000, in 2000 it went from 70 to 80.
And then,
Yeah.
then do other communities have a
That's
debt
what I'm
limit
asking. Yeah.
Yes, it's
in this
common.
range or higher? Or I'm just curious.
John, would you be able to answer that? Because
Yeah, that's what
my
I'm
history
asking.
goes back 20 years itself. So.
Yeah, a lot of particularly the metro cities who are building out infrastructure and building out their communities. They're some of them are in excess of 90%. and they go up to 95, and then their valuation grows as they put the infrastructure in. So, and then there's several other communities that don't have as many borrowing needs, so they're a little bit lower. So it's the communities that are growing very quickly that are putting a lot of infrastructure in. They're pushing north of 70% and even in the 80%. It's not uncommon. You see it quite a bit.
Right. It'd be nice, especially if the media got hold of this, or the media addressed this, excuse me, that they had the perspective of what other communities have too, so.
Yeah.
I don't know if a ton of them have a policy per se, but it varies. They make sure that they're under the state limit, though.
I was just going to ask about what other communities are doing and how to relate to it. And
Communities are paying for that infrastructure, and we don't do that.
Well, I mean, even down by where I live on Southwest, the southwest part of the city where Cruise Development's building, we did Watrous right there, and that's developing quite a bit down in that area. So there's definitely a lot of pockets around that we're doing it. And the reinvestment that we're doing quite a bit as well is spurring a lot of development and increase in
But
valuation.
not like the suburbs are. I mean, you look at those numbers, and the Waukees, the Ankenees are absolutely exploding.
Sure, but I mean, from where we're looking at, from the value of 1123 to, from 1122 to 1123, our 100% valuation is going to be roughly 16 billion to 19 billion. So to say that we're not growing we're growing quite a
No,
bit.
I didn't say we're not growing.
Okay.
We're not growing to the extent that the other suburbs are.
Well, we're already pretty good size.
Yeah.
So, our population exceeds all of them put together, and so it's, with the exception of rural Polk County, which then boosts it over. But on the other hand, we look at Des Moines, which, when we started doing all this work, we were about at 198, and now we're at, what, 215 or something like that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've grown significantly in number, but not in percentage, to your
Not
point, I
in
think.
percentage.
It's hard, a small percentage of a big number is a pretty big number.
Would you like to say something?
So in 2025, you said we'll get back 100 million, but then,
But we'll be under the 80% by about 100 million.
but then we have to turn around and spend out of that 100 million, what, 70?
No, because I think we are currently, from the GEO side debt levy piece, I think it was 40, but then I don't remember what the TIF debt was going to be. I think that was maybe about 15 to 20. So it will be
So it'd be
60.
between
Yeah.
50 and 65.
Yeah, but we will also be, in this current fiscal year, we'll be paying off 49 million of debt, and I think we'll be doing another 40-some million next year in debt. So we'll be wiping off.
So we're going to wipe off quite.
Because we reference, we are front loading quite a bit more, so we're cutting them off.
So we could take money and put it in infrastructure and grow.
If we want to levy a little bit more, we could, yes.
Grow the farmland that we have that has a potential for taxable growth.
If we were to issue more than what we currently have in the CIP plan, then we would have to be able to fund that some way with more tax. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. I think we need a motion on
Item
this.
5.
second?
Item 5's been moved and seconded. Ask everybody to vote.
6 yes.
Item 6 is approving a 5-day special Class C liquor license, beer, wine for Thirsty Pigs at 520 Robert D. Ray Drive for an event on October 5th, 2023. That's not too far away.
Tomorrow.
Well, in both ways.
I
And
will
across
move
the street.
approval.
Where's the event at?
At the, what is,
Cross
Botanic.
Street.
the Branton Skate.
If you're not skating, you can go have a beer.
That's what I want. Did somebody
Okay.
second it?
Move, yeah,
Yes.
I move.
I seconded it or moved it, whichever.
All right, moved and seconded. Here we go.
Okay.
6 yes.
Motion to adjourn, Your Honor.
All right. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, we sit adjourned. Thank you all, and staff, thank you for pulling this together